Peace and blessing, y'all. Welcome to GOAT James Kingdom. This episode is the top 10 greatest peaks or prime years in NBA history. Let's go. So in this episode, we're going to discuss the greatest peaks and prime years in NBA history. And we're going to discuss the players that are known for having the greatest peak or prime years because a certain player is always seemed to be deemed to have the greatest prime out of all players. So we will now break down these 10 players and show you who really has the greatest prime or peak in NBA history. So the criteria set for the players to be qualified for the greatest peak of all time is that it starts when you get your first All-NBA selection and it ends when your stats begin to decline. You also have to have at least one league MVP. Peak years must last at least 10 years. We're counting regular season average only and NBA trophies only. No playoff stats, no playoff trophies. So now that all qualifications have been met for the players listed here, we will go right on ahead and show you who had the greatest peak in NBA history. First player on our list is Wilt Chamberlain. Now, we all know Wilt Chamberlain gets brought up all the time in the GOAT conversation. His stats, accolades, also proves that he deserves to be in the GOAT conversation. In reality, Wilt Chamberlain is the most dominant player in NBA history. His regular season stats shown here reflects that. Wilt Chamberlain was just dominant beyond words or explanation. A lot of the faults against him is that he didn't win in a tough era against a great team like the Boston Celtics and a great winner like Bill Russell. But Wilt Chamberlain is on our list. Since Bill Russell was mentioned, he is the next player on our list. Bill Russell is the greatest winner in NBA history, and it shows here with the 10 championships that he won during his peak or prime years. Bill Russell is also knocked because of his stats, and people always talk about how he didn't score enough or they try to pretend like he let other people score. But in reality, what Bill Russell was the greatest winner. He probably had the greatest IQ in NBA history because he knew how to apply what he did to win basketball games. Next on our list is Cap. That's right, the captain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, one of the greatest players to ever play the game, and for those that seen him play, will consider him the GOAT of basketball. Not only does he have the scoring title in NBA history, this man also has the most MVPs in NBA history, as is highlighted here. His stats are remarkable. From 1970 to 1986, that's 17 great seasons in his peak where he dominated the game of basketball. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar deserves to be on this list. Another player worthy of being on this list is Julius Erving, none other than Dr. J, the high flyer, the man who was the smoothest player to ever touch a basketball. Coming in from the ABA, Dr. J was basically the catalyst to the NBA-ABA merger. He was the first NBA superstar. The man was just one of the greatest players to ever play the game. He gets knocked because his ABA stats are not usually shown or reflected in his all-time records, but this man here deserves to be on this list, Dr. J. The next great peak is basically one of the greatest players ever, Larry Bird. Larry Legend. We all know this is the man that was one of the most lethalest players in NBA history. He played in one of the most toughest and roughest eras in NBA history and faced one of the most toughest competition in NBA history. Larry Bird is known as one of the greatest competitors in NBA history. There's a lot of things that we can say about Larry Bird, but we'll let his stats and his accolades speak for themselves. This is his peak and why he made the list. Discussing Larry Bird's competition, it was none other than this man right here, Magic Johnson, Irvin Johnson, one of the greatest passers in NBA history, and some will call him the greatest passer and the greatest point guard in NBA history. He's one of the greatest winners in NBA history, but in his peak, he was able to dominate the NBA like none other. The man just did things that we just will never see ever again. His IQ, his ball court vision was just impeccable. Magic Johnson deserves to be on this list. Next on our list is Tim Duncan, and one of the greatest winners in NBA history and definitely one of the greatest players in NBA history. He's probably one of the most underrated players in NBA history because of his demeanor and the way he went about what he did on the basketball court. But his stats and accolades show like none other. His peak is one of the longest peaks in NBA history. He was able to win championships, collect all type of accolades, and also whip a lot of people behind while he was doing it. Tim Duncan deserves to be on this list. He has one of the greatest peaks ever. Now here is where our list gets real juicy, and we have Black Mamba, Kobe Bryant, R.I.P., Kobe Bryant is one of the most beloved players in NBA history. He is just known as Black Mamba because he has the mentality to kill or be killed. And what he does on the basketball court shows with his accolades and stats. His prime started in '99, and Kobe gave us a good 15 years straight where he just dominated the NBA like none other. Let's give it up for Kobe Bryant. Now, we can't mention Kobe Bryant without mentioning Michael Jordan, the player who Kobe Bryant mimicked his game behind. Michael Jordan is considered the greatest player of all time by most NBA fans and, of course, the media. Michael Jordan's peak is also known as the greatest peak in NBA history. What he did in these 13 seasons is always argued that will never be challenged and will always be considered the greatest ever. This is Michael Jordan, and this is why he made the list. And last but not least, definitely not least, we have GOAT James, LeBron James, King James, the player that we consider to be the greatest player of all time, and so do other NBA fans and also folks in the media. LeBron James is always compared to Michael Jordan because Michael Jordan was considered the greatest player when LeBron entered the NBA in 2003. But from 2005 to today, this present day, LeBron James has the greatest peak in NBA history. GOAT James Kingdom.